Right, welcome everyone at the Multi-Network Community Sync. Today is November 1st. I have a very light agenda. Just want to talk about some concerns I'm hearing here and there. But if you have other topics you want to talk, feel free to just add to the agenda, then we can touch on them. We have quite some time. So I'm hearing that Kubernetes as a whole is getting and being more and more concerned about growing complexity for the project as a whole. And considering that multi-network can be something seen as one of those items contributing to that effect as well. And this might be even more compounded by the fact that we about the how to say that about the user base that multi-network is going to have. So kind of my call to action is from this group, and probably if you can from mostly from this group currently, is to spread the word and being more maybe start being more engaged in our PR and upstream. Here I know we are all being engaged and we are all interested in this whole thing, but my goal is to ensure that we all show that the user base and the need from the community is high for this feature. On top of the discussion on of the complexity, we must ensure that there is a high interest in this feature across the board. It's not coming just because right now, like upstream, I know here we are all discussing and driving this, but in upstream PR, I'm almost alone there. So I think that's one place where I think this group and can get engaged and help me with kind of pushing for interest of this. Right now, this is just me. So my call to action from everyone and ask to everyone is to be more engaged, even if you have some maybe customers even from your side to that are interested in this, get them involved as well and help us with this endeavor to kind of push this further so we can prove that it's not right now. I think what I'm saying and what am I thinking is around this, that this feature probably will be used by around 10% of the user base of Kubernetes, which is a very weak argument to push this thing into core, at least. That's kind of how it looks like. That's my opinion, and that's how I'm kind of feeling about this. If someone has some different point of view, let me know. But that's this is kind of I want to touch base with everyone here to kind of be wary of that. I'm saying like because we might get a big pushback on from the core Kubernetes to kind of do it differently or not completely move away from core. So that's my concern. There is a bunch of hands. I think Dan, you go first. I think you were first.
So you said something about that's a very something argument for putting it in Kubernetes core, but I didn't catch the word you said.
Complex. It might be a complex, two things, a complex feature and low user base for such endeavor. That's the kind of the thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
So
did you say it was a weak argument, maybe?
yeah. I said that
Okay.
considering this, that there's that, considering the user base is low, that might be a weak argument to push such a considering what we want to do, right?
Right.
Keep in mind that our this phase is very light and touches just on few things here and there and in small base, but if you look at the whole requirements, we trying to kind of redo quite a lot, right? Eventually, so long term thinking, that's the whole thing, right?
Right. Yeah,
holistically thinking about it.
I didn't hear the word you said, and so I wasn't sure if you were trying to say that it was a good argument or a bad argument.
No, that was a weak argument. No, it was
Yeah.
it is kind of a weak argument. If you can think about this, why would I redo everything in something that is very stable for just, let's say, 10% of the base? And maybe I'm mistaken about the 10%. This is where I'm asking all of you to correct me if I'm wrong about this. And this is where we need to get more people involved to prove me and probably the rest of the core Kubernetes wrong, right? Stating that no, this will be used by more than just like measly 10%. There is a lot of interest in this. Just to kind of yeah, there is that. Yeah. I think Michael, you were next.
Yep, 2 points here. The complexity concern, who specifically did that come from? What specifically was their concern?
As I mentioned, this will be
it's Kubernetes as a whole.
Yeah, Kubernetes as a whole, and I'm hearing that even from it's not specifically that part, but one, for example, pointer is KubeCon next week. Team is going to do some sort of the talk about complexity as well, and he has feedbacks from all the SIGs because he's trying to kind of make it as a kind of make presentation about this. So this is another compounder to this whole thing, right? So the complexity concern, right? So I don't want to kind of point fingers on anyone because that's not the thing. I think this is the general feeling across the board in Kubernetes organization.
But what is the specific concern?
Adding another network as an object and basically dealing with network, and the concern would be with we give you a finger and you're gonna take a whole elbow later on. Kind of thing. So you're gonna start with just simple, just an object, but in the future we're gonna, and this is where I'm trying to calm everyone that no, we should prevent something like service. I'm not sure service. I'm not sure how much all of you are aware. Service has so many options and so many combinations and everything in it that it's just out of hand currently. So we have an example, which is a thing that not to do, like service. So basically, this can be something that can be an argument to prevent anyone adding anything else to the network in the future, pod network object in the future. But still, that's a concern, right? You open the gates, and that's basically where people are gonna start adding here, there, and that's a bit of a concern. That's one aspect, right? Basically, the whole the other aspect, Michael, is that you look at our requirements. That's what I was mentioning. Look at our requirements. We are touching everything. We have to modify scheduler. We have to modify kubelet. We have to think about the API server, how that would behave when you have multiple interfaces. Do we multi-home somehow the API server? So there is a bunch of things we haven't talked about yet. Today, the first one is I think this is very simple and maybe not so complex. But if you look at it holistically, at all the requirements and all the 4 phases that we want to introduce, that's it kind of adds up, right? That's the concern, Michael.
So is it the final implementation, or is it the approach that we're currently taking is the concern? I'm trying to just root cause like the actual complexity concern so I can go fight this.
I think the other aspect of this is you have Gateway API, which is quite well successful, right? And is being done outside of core. So that's another argument, another ammo, I would say, as an argument to say, let's try to push it out of core, right? And maybe do it outside.
But the rule should be, right? What doesn't have to be in core should not be in core, right? So the question is, can this be done outside core? Then we should do it outside core, right?
And I agree with you. And exactly that's another thing, right? Maybe the discussion should be on, I think I will step back here because we are drilling on what exactly, Michael, your questions on what exactly was. I don't want to kind of drill because you might be right. We have to dig into some of those concerns maybe eventually when they come. on maybe we should then think about different approach, and what you're per saying maybe like a concern here where maybe it should be a CRD and be done outside of core, but then we would have to negotiate what sort of stuff we would need, hooks, etc., from the core to enable us with this, right? Because things like, I don't know, how do I specify?
That should be the blanket statement. This might make sense to have parts in core all, right? I mean,
Yeah, okay, that's fair. Yeah, exactly. And then other thing, what we thinking from my side, I talked with some other teammate on my side where we want to push this is what is the criteria for complexity, right? Let's define those. Why, on the other hand, so what, we are not going to do any features in core at all in the future. There's that aspect, right, as well. So, there is a few things to this. And I just want to make sure that we all kind of get, I want to kind of push this group to be more engaged and showing off that we are all interested in, and there is not just maybe hopefully the 10% that wants to do this feature from the user base.
So when you say base, right, and 10%, is it users? I mean, like Google is a big company, right? Is that one user?
Right. That's fair. But like looking at the whole Kubernetes upstream, right? That's I'm not sure whether
is it the number of clusters that use this feature and so on?
Probably number. Let's maybe that, yeah, number of clusters, right? That would use, because even in Google, it's not like it's going to
be if Dan and Doug, does Red Hat has? Do you know if there's any statistics how many that using Multus in OCP clusters? Is that some statistics you guys have?
We do have that statistic. I don't know telemetry what I can say about that kind of a thing. But here's my general gist.
A perfect number, but I mean,
in general terms, I would say generally, it's not a large percentage, but I will say that the users that do use it tend to be large companies with large user bases and large deployments.
And folks, that's the thing, right? We are discussing with ourselves. We are aware of that. Let's spread the word outside as well. That's you don't have to convince me. I have my own customers from my side, which I want to kind of satisfy same way. But that's the thing, right? Between us, I agree. We all have, but prove, and I don't think that's a kind of
anyone that says that multi-homing is not, I wouldn't say complex, but complicated, that it has unforeseen, surprising features that many people are not aware of, I will say. So it's like, as soon as you add in two interfaces, there is a lot of stuff that can happen. And
exactly. That's the concern. That's one of the concerns, right? The other thing is, to that note, Per, is that someone who doesn't know what it means won't try it, right? Won't do it. There is that aspect, right? We are trying to make it backward compatible as much as we could. That's our like main. That's the first requirement, is to be fully backward compatible. There is nothing about that aspect, right? So we ensuring that whatever you did today and you don't care about any of this, you don't have to, right? And there is no.
I mean, the first rule should be, don't use it.
Exactly. If you don't know what you're doing, then don't use it. But then, yeah, that's the thing. Michael, you have a hand.
Yeah, I just wanted to finish my thought about like the complexity concern is that, before we start going down the rabbit hole of making changes and proposing changes in and outside of KK, it's a rant. Otherwise, if we don't have specifics, I don't think those are actionable. And if the other part of that is increasing the participation in the PR, so it's a little bit more fuzzy for people not involved with the overall process, that's an easy can do. But I just want to make sure we don't turn this, concern into something where we become distracted.
Fair. That's fair. And basically, Right now the PR is not. I am busy bit with the KubeCon coming next week, but busy with other things. But I am planning after KubeCon to go to the other 6. I think Signet node is the most important to talk about this, and I assume this is where I definitely gonna get a lot of pushback and discussions around what we really want to do. And this I will trigger hopefully, and even from KubeCon after mine and Doug's presentation, I hope I'm gonna kind of spread the word about the PR to wider group. So I am looking at influx of reviews in that PR. This is where we need to now. That's one of the things, Michael. Yes, that's one of the things I'm calling right now. There is like most of the PRs recently. This and last week didn't come. Any new PR reviews came in, right? But I am expecting that next week or 2 weeks. This is where my call to action comes from, right? As well, because this is where we will finally gonna get a lot of comments, and we need to all kind of group up and start showing up that there is high interest, not only from my side, right? So that's something that we need to show, right? I think that's one of the ways to show that, right? The interest in this.
100%. So like selling it to Signode and others shouldn't be, obviously it could be a little bit of a hurdle. However,
Yeah.
I've already sold this to like the, container D with
Mhm.
various use cases. I think if we're going to go present this, I'm sure you already have a plan of attack, but I'd love to help you in that
Yeah,
endeavor
okay.
to tackle Signode or SigArch or whoever.
Yeah. So okay, that's thanks for the proposal, Mike. I will reach out for the sig note on how to kind of do that. Let's yeah, thank you. Yeah, I will. Let's do that. Definitely.
Dan is also has a lot of sway as well, and quite knowledgeable in this area. So if he can help, that'd be great.
Who's that? Can you repeat?
Dan Winship.
Oh, Dan. Yeah, definitely. Any other questions to this, to what I had said? I think the message, in general message, is to kind of let's try to show that we really care, and there is a wider group needing this. That's kind of my gist of this message. Any other comments to this?
I added a few questions in the chat window.
Oh, sorry. Oh, that's a fair point. Yeah, Daniel. Yeah, I think survey. Yeah, that was getting some survey. That will be yeah, some good to do. Yeah, thanks for that.
Yeah, I bring that up because I was a maintainer of Gateway API during the early stages of that project, and I know collecting that user data of the challenges that users were having with ingress, the ingress object, for example, that really formed the core of our argument for establishing the Gateway API project. And
no, that's great. Yeah, thanks for that idea. Like, so simple, but you're right. That's we should. I will try to do that after KubeCon.
Yeah, and I put a link to the survey, and we'd have to just kind of parse through it and see if there's any information out there, and if not, I would definitely say let's figure out how we go about adding those questions that are needed for the next survey.
I would think did you added that ingress to this CNCF survey?
I believe it was Bowie. I believe it was Bowie at the time that he was the one that started off with the survey. So he would be a good contact, or I could reach out to him and see.
No, I definitely can ping him. Yeah, he's just sitting a few rows ahead from me.
Cool.
So yeah, definitely. Yeah, thanks, Daniel. That's a simple thing, but I didn't think of it. Yeah, thanks for the hint. That will be definitely, we need to do that. Doug?
So here's something that I kind of think that maybe we could do, or is a way to keep moving forward without essentially unnecessarily scaring ourselves that this is too complicated. Like, for example, okay, so like one thing you mentioned, Mache, is continue socializing this with the stakeholder SIGs. Like, I think that's good. And what we can do is we can document and collect any complexity concerns so that we have specifics for what to do. Also, Danian, awesome suggestion about the possibility of a CRD approach. Like that's something that we could do, and it could be a way to like further socialize this in sort of a whatever non-destructive way. But something else, Per, just 1 second.
I'm gonna raise my hand.
Okay, cool, thanks. And if we decide to go with something out of tree, there's certain stuff that we will need in tree, like in terms of network plumbing working group, you know, that's all out of tree, right? Just 100% out of tree. It does work, but there are challenges that could be solved with certain things in tree. So what we could do is like some of our next phases beyond the sort of data definitions here is to look at what we need for services and network policy, right? And so like there's even so just taking services as an example is like Tomo has gone to SIG network before and said like there's something like a what is it? Is it
Endpoint slice controller? That's what you refer to?
Yeah, network slice controller.
I think
right?
I saw that. Yeah, that's something that we saw recently as well. And right now, as it stands, it can be moved forward towards, right? Some small cap that has to be created to kind of
right. So
do
maybe
what he wanted to do.
So awesome. Yeah, thanks for having seen that. And yeah, so this is the kind of stuff that I think that what we should do is carry on our path forward, document the complexities as we find them, but also look towards like, hey, what changes are necessary in services, right? Like this should be one of the next steps in our kind of roadmap here is, okay, we have the data definition for the API. What are the logical changes that we need in core? And if we can start to like sift these apart, then we don't necessarily lose the work that we've done today. Maybe it changes a little bit, but we can start to identify this stuff. And that concludes my rant. So Per, please go for it.
No, I was going to say that, yeah, Multus is halfway there, right? I don't know if we have any official CRDs defined for Multus today, or
there is the network attachment definition. There is one, right?
Yeah. But yeah, the problem is, of course, then the use of the how you attach to that in the other specs, that it's becomes basically common.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's fair. So there are gaps, right? So and that was one of my arguments, like out of tree, basically Multus is done out of tree, right? And I think it did what's possible, what is mostly possible with something that's done outside, right? Yeah, Pete, yeah, exactly, that's what I'm referring to. Yes.
And now haven't been joining the meetings for a while. I will start now again, but also we did quite a lot of work right around how you can change the the cluster network, the default network. And
right,
would that
exactly.
be possible to express if you try to move it out as CRDs? So
fair.
So I think there are strong arguments for why it should stay in core, but I mean, I think it's better to make it clear what wouldn't work then, and what consequences it will have.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the things, even the simple fact as how do I reference? We cannot stay. That was the point of this whole approach. If we still stay with annotations on a pod, we want to move away from that.
I think that's the main. Kubernetes, if we're going to start using CRDs and have this approach to do as little as possible in Kubernetes, then we need to have a non-annotation way
Right.
to refer to these resources, and that's not there yet. I mean, that would be used by everyone, right?
Yeah, and not even that, like, where is the validation then and all that? That's annotation is not the approach, right? That's
No, exactly. But we need to have some then out of core reference mechanism that has some semantics attached to it.
Exactly. Fair. All right. Any other comments to this? Anyone?
And the problem becomes, of course, when core components need to refer to these resources, then like you have a real nice.
Yeah, this is goes through then later other elements like like Doc mentioned, service at least, right? First is the pod, that's the simplest one, but that's what we currently want to do. But then what next, right? We want to kind of have reference in all the other elements and objects, and we're just gonna do annotations everywhere. What will
I guess we all have absolute understanding for sort of, we need to keep the complexity down. I mean, I've been doing something that's nothing to do with the network, but I mean, using resource management to find network cards, and then on the nodes where they are, start up one pod per card. And it's possible to do, but it's not easy. It's great that it's possible, right? But the amount of stuff that needs to be generated to do this is quite large, and it's complex. But before it wasn't possible, so I'm super happy that it's possible. But it is. I don't like the word complex, but it is complicated to do.
Yeah.
And so it's not sort of someone that doesn't put work into understand it will get it wrong. So so to validate the whole machine is getting more and more hard. Sort of how to ensure that everything is working properly.
Doug?
Yeah, one, I guess, kind of social approach to addressing complexity is to maybe look at some of the stuff that we have in our KEP documents that and looking at the 90-10 kind of argument is we have some stuff. In fact, I was just looking at it, trying to answer a question for myself, like, what does this look like at install time? Like, what's required at install time? And since we take a backwards compatible approach, we have some kind of like sane default and a way to kind of create a default for people. For that 90%, in terms of usage of the system, this doesn't change anything for them, right?
No.
Right. So I think that that's kind of one way to approach it, which is from like an admin and user perspective, is that this doesn't make anyone's life more complicated than it is today. So yes, are there difficult and challenging and potentially complicated things that we do need to address in terms of changes to core? Sure. But in terms of an everyday user, that 90%, their life doesn't change. So I think that that's something to keep in mind, and also maybe to keep in mind as KubeCon approaches and people ask us about this, like, does it make your life harder? No, if you don't care about this, you don't need to care about it. That's all.
Yeah. All right. I think this is good. Thanks everyone for the discussion. Any other topics you want to kind of bring up? We have still some time. I think next week I won't be able to drive this. I'm not sure if there's gonna be any interest. Should we keep the next week meeting or should we just cancel? Let me know.
Let's cancel for KubeCon. That's what I think.
All right. So let me just put it out there. All right. right, thanks everyone. Then let's call it. If there's no other topics, then thanks and see
care,
some
guys.
of you hopefully.
And
Yeah,
have a
next
nice
week.
cube.
Yep.
All right, catch you all soon. All right,
Yep.
thank you.
Bye.
Bye.